Hi, Megha. Thank you so much for joining us on Bliss Business. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Likewise, Ashish. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Awesome. Let's get started. I was just reading the news and I saw the news in terms of Marico. I think today, within a day or so, I fully acquired the remaining stakes. So, how are you feeling?
Feel good, yeah. We feel great. So Marico acquired Just Herb's, stake of 60% about 3 years ago in 2021, and over the period of 3 years, which is like now 2024, they had to complete, the complete stake acquisition. So now that has happened. So it feels good, yeah.
It feels good. So let's
It
dive
feels
deep
good.
into
Yeah, I
this.
feel complete. It was something which was there, right, and now it's finally happened. So yeah, as a founder, you do feel good that finally, like it's happened, because once you have investors on board, right, after and then we had a strategic partnership with Marico. So eventually we knew that this is going to happen, like Just Herbs would be completely acquired, and now when it has happened, you feel that it has got a conclusion to it. So you feel good. There is a certain calmness, right?
And do you enjoying the free time, or how is it, or you're keeping yourself busy
Yes,
with someone?
definitely. So I had my baby 2 years ago, right? So I'll be very honest. I mean, because we were in the midst of all of this, and I've been full time involved with Just Herbs. Was not able to spend that kind of time with her, and now I feel there is this downtime, free time. It's barely been a month, month and a half, right? So I'm getting some time off, getting some extra time to spend with her, right? Which is completely relaxed. So yeah, it's right now it's just total unwinding, to be very honest. And with Diwali round the corner, it's a lot of anyway that whole festive mode is there. So yeah, it is really unwinding and relaxing at this point.
So let's dive deeper into it. So when did you, for our audience, although I read everything, but I wanted to hear from you when you started this journey. Did you sort of envision this thing happening, or what was your sort of? So whenever someone starts a company, they're like, "I want to achieve this. I want to do this." Right? What was your goal in your mind when you started this?
So, we started this 10 years ago in 2014. Who's my co founder and my partner in life. We both moved back from Singapore, and we started this with with his mom, who's our third co founder as well. So, the three of us started this together in 2014, right? And trust me, when we started this out, of course, it wasn't that, oh, we need to pick up funding, or, we have to have a strategic partner. It was all about making a brand with a difference, right? Because 10 years ago you didn't have, the ecosystem was very different, the consumer was very different, right? It wasn't this evolved that it is today, right? So when we were starting out a natural brand in this space, we knew that there is a lot of education required to the consumer as well, right? So when we started out, for the first 5 years we've been completely bootstrapped, right? And that's when, after 5 years of being uh, in this, we raised funds, and then we had a strategic partner. So it has been a gradual process. It has not been that, oh, we jumped in and then we had funding and then we had like a strategic. So we've seen all three different routes, right? So we've been bootstrapped, we've had angel investment, and we've had a VC fund, and then we've had Marico, right? So I would not say that it was like completely planned, right, in terms of raising funds. But yes, in terms of having a good brand out there and products which make a difference, that was something which, when we started out, we had this in mind. That was the vision. And then things followed. Trust me, when the brand was making a difference, right? And there was a lot of word of mouth. I mean, VCs, and they started contacting us on our own. So that's how it happened.
You saw the full journey from, as you mentioned, angel,
Yes.
VC, and then a strategy partnership. What was the most exciting piece in this entire journey?
So I would say so of course, starting out, so each journey had their own share of, excitements, right? Of course, when we started
But
out
one
and
thing,
we could see, I would say definitely, of course, when Marico, came and took a 60% stake, it was like the final validation, right? Because that's when we were like, okay, here somebody is totally validating what we are doing, right? So that was like a very, very major high point in the entire journey, which happened in 21 in the midst of the pandemic, right? Yes. So that was something which was a major high point, and it was very exciting, right? Of course, when we got our first angel and the VC, that was also validation, because we knew that somebody else also believes in us, right, in our story. But when Marico came in, I would say that it was like a really high when we partnered with the
Sure.
strategic, because then we eventually knew that there would be a conclusion to the.
And how easy, you mentioned three founders, your partner and the mother-in-law, I think you mentioned. So
Yes,
how
yes.
easy is to interpersonal issues, because then you're coming back home also, and then you're at
Yeah.
work also.
So see, now it had been a 10-year long journey, right? But initially it was hard. I wouldn't say, that, oh, it was very easy. Initially it was hard because, we are three co-founders with different temperaments, right? I mean, Arush and myself, we are, very different temperaments. We are like, I am more, he is the visionary sort of, vision and a problem solving. And I'm more like rational and, I would say rational and more logical, because when there are funds and then there is so much involved, right? And he has the vision and the problem solving ability, right? So we are two different individuals, two different co-founders, but over a period of time, we did learn how to work with each other. And then with my mother-in-law, mostly her role was around the R&D part, right? So of course, stepping on each other's shoes was anyway, I mean, not really something that happened. But yes, it wasn't that easy. If I would say, it's very hard because you have you do have a personal equation also. But then we tried not to bring it home, because you have a home front, a personal front. So we learned that we should try to resolve it in office and not bring it home. This was over a period of
So
time. It didn't happen overnight.
what were these three suggestions or learning you had? Because we had seen like previous also, and that's a very frequent question in terms of how to deal with these things. So what are your three tips, suggestion for people who are in the same situation?
See, definitely one thing I would say is that when you should have your boundaries and your work scope very, very clearly marked, so that you don't step on each other's shoes. Sometimes in spite of that also you do, tend to be in each other's space, because at the end of the day you are so consumed and so passionate about your project or about the brand or the venture that it's very hard to not get entangled. But then the person, but now, like what happened over a period of time, we had a larger team. So we would know that it's better, that one person should back off. So that's one thing. I think that's sort of wisdom, that when you know that you are two of you, whether you're two co-founders as friends or as family or as partners, right? That you should know when to back off, and not get entangled. So that's something we learned, that one of you has to back off. Otherwise it can get a little messy. This is one learning I felt, that backing off is important. Clear boundaries is extremely important, right? Not sharing of the same roles. Initially it's very hard because you're just few people in a startup and you do tend to overstep, but minimize it as possible, right? So that was definitely another thing. And at your workspace, again, like initially we were all together in one room, but as time progressed we had our own cabins. So again, having separate workspace is very important, so that you're not into each other's faces. So yes, these are a few things which I feel are very important, right? Clear demarcation of roles, having your boundaries, having your own space at work. All these things are extremely, and the
And who had
temperament
the
to
final say?
know, that when to back off.
And who had the final say in the
Sorry,
and
I
who
can't
had
hear
the
you.
final say in the business?
So the final say would be, so now we have a large team, right? And we don't have to, it's the team who would tell us, right? If we are stuck in a situation where we are not able to reach a consensus, we had people
Tell
in
us
the
about
roles,
the
and without, so for instance, I would say now I would, as my role, I would be taking care of the new product development, like new product launches, right? And again, I mean, I'm a clear believer that there are some products we launch which are, just trend based, and some are there to stay, So that, as a team, when we are discussing the products, probably my co-founder could say that, oh, let's launch this product, right? But I would be like, no, but this is just very trend based, and the trend is going to die out within a month or two, right? And if we can't reach a consensus, then our team who's with us, they would, probably help us that, okay, this is, Megha's right or Arush is right, or we think we should do this. And if there would be more votes to that, then we would go ahead with that sort of a thing. So by a few years, you know how to really, because at the end of the day, we are both working for the right purpose, right? So we want the best thing to come out from the business. So that is the thing. So we both know that at the end of the day, we both are looking at the right thing, and it should be the right thing that should come out of this. The outcome should be the best for the business. It's nothing personal, right? And that's how we would take the calls, basically.
So let's go back little in time in Singapore before you guys were planning to start this out. So what led you guys to begin with this in first place? Like, what was that motivation, inclination? Like, what was that thought process?
So we were both in Singapore actually, Arush and myself. He was working with an asset management company. I was again working with a company which is headquartered in Bangalore. They were into manufacturing of ingredients which go into, FMCG goods, right? So we were both in very comfortable and cushy jobs, right? But somewhere down the line, we wanted to do something of our own, right? And it was about almost a year, we were toying with the idea of basically doing this, because Arush's mom, Dr. Chopra, was already, making these basically lotions and potions back in Mohali, right? And we thought that, okay, we already have this in the home. So it was not in the form of a business, a little more than a hobby and a little less than a business, I would say. And that's when we thought that, okay, when we have something at home, why don't we go and give this a shot? And it was like this, right? And we both wanted to mainly do something. We wanted to take, we wanted to deep dive into our entrepreneurship. We both wanted to do that. And after about a year, we zeroed down on this, and that's how it started. We both moved back from Singapore to Mohali. Yeah. So that
And
was one thing. And
anything?
also, I would say that we could see the wave of, so we were in Singapore, and we could see this wave coming of online shopping in India, because we could see this happen overseas. And we knew that this is something which will, take over in India as well. So I think both the things together, and that's how it happened.
And what was that sort of journey from 0 to 10 crores and 10 crores to 100?
Hmm. So as I told you, the journey from 0 to 10, we were mainly bootstrapped, So the first 5 years, we started in 2014, and 2014 to 18 was this journey of 10 crores,
How much?
right?
So it took you 5 years for the 10
4
crores.
years, yeah, because we were completely bootstrapped. And as I said, that when we moved back, the ecosystem was such, there was nothing known as the D2C. There was no word as D2C. There was no cash on delivery. So the ecosystem was just setting in. You had the Nikas of the world coming in, and Flipkart was setting in. And there were so many other marketplaces which don't exist right now, right? So yeah, so it took us about 4 years to get from 0 to 10. And I would say, and being bootstrapped, right? Because all this, these dynamics of funding and all of that started around 2017, right? So I would say that was probably it was a hard journey, but we learned a lot. Our basic foundation got very solid in those 4 years. So that journey 0 to 10 was a very tough one when you have very limited funds and you're running your homes also from that, right? So that was a tough journey. And then, of course, after that, 10 to 100 was different, because then you've raised funds, and then you have to multiply, right? So then there was no looking back. So they were both very different journeys, both very interesting, both very challenging in their own way. But if I have to say what was harder, probably 2014 to 18, when you are bootstrapped, when you are running your own homes with that money, when you have to still, when you have to still, from like a 2 crore turnover, go to 4 to 6, 6 to 8, because you want the business to grow. And when the funds are so limited. So I would say that definitely 0 to 10 was a harder journey versus a 10 to 100. 10 to
So in
100 was definitely a more busier journey, more where you are constantly absorbed, where you are building your team, where there's lots happening. 10 to 100, right? Yeah. So this is how I would, you're building your
So in the
team, suddenly you are the CEO and the CEO, not suddenly, I mean, after a few, and then you are delegating. But in the 0 to 10 journey, you do everything. Like we were doing everything on our own, sort of.
so in part one, let's say the 0 to 10 one. So how were you selling? What was the channel? It was online, offline.
So Just Ups has been an internet born brand, right? We sold primarily online, right? I mean, we sold through our website, right? Mainly, I mean, usually what the brands typically do is they start with marketplaces and then they build their website. But for us, it was the other way around, that we sold through our website first and then we moved to our partners like the marketplaces. So we were selling through our website, we were selling through the Nikas and a lot of other websites which don't exist right now. So primarily we were an online brand, and then we did start our own stores. I mean, we had two stores in Hyderabad, we had our own store in Bombay, we had a store in Chandigarh, right? But primarily most of the sales were happening online. I would say about 90% of the sales were coming online.
And do you think now there are so many channels like platforms to sell the product? Is it easier or difficult to build a D2C brand now?
If I compare it from back then, it is harder to build a D2C brand. Definitely. Because that time D2C was still it was a novel idea. Even the players that have existed for years were not into D2C. So small brands like us, who were digital first brands, right? They were able to explore that, and that landscape was fairly empty. There were not many players in the D2C space. But over a period of time, D2C has become harder because the cost of acquiring a customer is higher than what it was then, right? Back then. And today, everybody, whether it has been a player who's existed for very long or even a new brand, everybody wants to enter the D2C space. So definitely, it is harder than what it was earlier.
How much has the cost of acquisition has increased by? Like what's 20%, 30%, 40%? What's that number?
So, see, the thing is that for us as a brand, over a period of time, the CACs have reduced, right? But for a brand who is just starting out, I would say that the cost to acquire a customer has increased by 30 to 40%.
So
Because channels like where we used to have Facebook, Google, all these channels have become very expensive, which were not that expensive back then.
So how can someone start a D2C brand now? I mean, what is that way if someone don't have, anyways, people have limited capital and cost of acquisition is now higher on the higher front. Should people try to pivot or do something else, or what should be done now?
So again, it depends on the journey where you are. When you are starting out with a brand, you have to keep certain things in mind, that the product has to be very differentiated. The channel that you're starting with on D2C, right? Whether you're, I mean, the mix, how much you want to dedicate to Facebook, how much you want to dedicate to Google, and there are other partners as well, right? So the channel mix and the product today, I would say, is a major differentiator, right? Then your target, you have to choose your target market very, very selectively, right? So I would say that initially, like when a D2C brand starts, it should go niche, it should start niche and then probably, go broad, right? So that you get a larger chunk of your target market, right? So this is what I would probably say, right? So it was hard even then, right? Because people were, so the challenges keep changing. People were not used to online shopping then. People did not have credit cards. Like our shopping is mostly primarily done by women. So women back then, like 10 years ago, mostly they did not have cards. No credit card, no debit card. So it was mostly cash on delivery. There were no cash on delivery partners. So the challenges keep changing, right? So agar customer acquiring, the cost of customer was lower, but then you had these challenges, right? Today that has taken care. Then so that's what, that you have to find that balance. You have to keep, so earlier you had to keep making changes to your product, like probably every 5 years when we got into the journey. But I think now it's like every 2 years you have to re-innovate and reinvent yourself. So that is something I would say is important, right?
Yeah,
That
I
getting the
think that's
right product, the right branding, so that you are able to grab those eyeballs on the internet.
and when the sort of Marico sort of thing came in, like 60%, did you guys give it a second thought in terms of should we make it 100 to 1000 crores, 500 crores, or
So I'll tell you, when Marico came in 2021, right? we were speaking to other people also, right? And of course, when Marico approached us, and the way the contour was, that we thought that, okay, right, let's go ahead with them, because we felt that the value system and all of that, matched, right? But when we didn't give it too much thought, when, to be very honest. I mean, it was at a certain mark in the on the because we were just at 18 crores back then. Right? Marico acquired us, right? So in the span of 3 years, we had to hit a milestone, and we felt that it should be something. I mean, it was very hard. It wasn't, because usually when you see the traditional beauty brands, even now, who are not funded and who are completely bootstrapped, when you ask them over a period of 20 years, what is the turnover, they'll say it's 25 CR or 30 CR, right? So something like this, from 80, going from 18 to an X number in the next 3 years, was even like, from traditional wisdom, it was like, oh my god, how you guys doing it, how you guys going to do it, right? But yeah, we took up the challenge, and we said that, ab liya hai to ye karenge. It was like that sort of. But yeah, it was more like that.
But how did you do it? I mean, it's a crazy challenge. 18 to 100 in 3 years. So, what worked for you guys? Ki, yeah, Marico distribution opened up. Like, what was that thing? Because it is a massive number by any means to achieve in 3 years.
Yeah. So I'll tell you that of course, the inflow of funds coming in helped, right? That was one thing. Secondly, what we did is that we accelerated everything that we were already doing. Like, if we were doing, if suppose we were doing 2 crores on our D2C, right? We knew that, okay, this is how much we need to do on our D2C. We really worked on our marketplaces, like on our Amazon, Flipkart, or Nykaa, and then, of course, the quick commerce really helped us. So we really accelerated the marketplaces channel, right? Because we were hard, when Marico acquired us, we were hardly doing anything on the, barely doing any numbers on marketplaces, right? And the third was that just 2 years ago, we opened our retail channel as well, because that's something we had not started. So now, currently, as of March 31st, we had about 100 plus retail stores, right? So again, we opened the retail channel, right? Because we knew that the retail channel is, no matter that, that in Justubs is a internet born brand, but there is still a lot of shopping on retail as well. So that channel was also important for us to open up. So that's how it happened. Yeah. I may be making it sound easy, but it was not that easy.
Yeah, I can say
But yes, and also things have to fall in the right place, right? You have to hire the right people. That was also, we expanded our team, right? So again, we had like a D2C head. We had a head for marketplaces, which was not there before Marico came in, right? So a retail head, right? So getting the right team in place and the right people, and then, Arush and my role was left to, like, getting the work done and getting this whole big piece moving. So that was something which I would say probably worked for us.
And in this D2C versus offline, what's your current split? Like, it's mostly, or it's equal, or offline is contributing more lately?
See, right now, I would say, as of like 31st March, I would D2C was contributing more than offline, because offline is still relatively a newer channel. And we've been on D2C for so many years.
And in terms of, so the milestone which you guys set for achieving in 3 years, what was the other scenario if it doesn't happen? Like, then what?
So if we wouldn't have achieved it, then I don't know. Then probably we would have, maybe got another year to achieve it. It would have been then very different, right? Or I don't know, right? We are not thought of the scenario that if we don't achieve it, I'll be very honest, right? I mean, but yeah, we had that had not. It was always like "Ye karna hai." I mean, that the thought, we have to remove that thought that it will not happen. We will make it happen.
And in hindsight, Megha, like when you look back now in 10 years or so, anything you wish you would have done differently?
Okay, differently. So yeah, I would say probably a little early, not maybe differently, but like, we went through this packaging change exercise in 2020, right? Just before Marico was acquiring us, we were in the midst of the entire packaging change. I feel that's one thing we should have as a brand done earlier. We procrastinated a lot on that piece, right? So that was one thing I felt like, now when I look back in my journey, that the right packaging, the right look of the product really makes a lot of difference. And because we were bootstrapped, we did this. We had no, external designer, nothing. We did everything in house. It was mine and our own vision. And, usually today, typically, when, because the founders are today more, I would say, more in sync with what is happening, so they would, the first thing is they would hire an agency which would help them design the packaging. So that was something which we did on our own, and we did it in piecemeal basis as we got funds and all of that, right? Because even our peers around us were doing that, right? But I would feel that that was something like we should have done. I mean, hired an external agency and given our vision and all of that much earlier on. That was one thing. And I do wish that we would have got external funding a little earlier. That was another thing, right? Because that does validate an entrepreneur's vision. That's one thing. And it, because at the end of the day, building a brand takes a lot of funding and all of that. It's not easy. So that is something I feel that in the journey, to we should have, gotten it a little earlier in our journey. That's one thing I feel. So we raised our first round in 2019. uh, I always say that I wish we would have been, funded by some angels or VCs by 2017. So that these are the two things I feel that could have changed a lot of things.
So what stopped you not raising capital in 2017?
So the thing is that we started, what happened is that around 2017 is we started raising capital, like we started with that. But sometimes closing around, finding the right VC, it sounds very easy, but fundraising is a different job for an entrepreneur. Like it is a job within a job, right? I remember Arush and I giving during COVID times, 10, 20 pitches, 10, 10, sometimes 5, 10, 10 pitches in a day. Right. Though we had room, we had, because we just had raised a round, but because nobody knew what's going to happen ahead, right? We were continuing to pitch, but sometimes closing a round takes very long. Right? So in 2017, we started, our fundraising journey, right? But while in the journey, when you're almost, we were almost about to clinch a deal and it fell through, right? And then we were able to close around in 2019. So a lot of things happened, right, in fundraising. And you have to also like the VC. There would be times that if somebody is giving us money, you were not too sure that are they the right people to partner with and all of that. So that's something I feel that I wish we could have. And this, it's not like we started only with the mindset that we want to fundraise. It was around 2.5 years down the journey when we saw that, okay, this is also a possibility, right? Where we can raise external funds and, this could, fuel our journey faster. So that's something I feel that we could have had, funds about a year and a half before 2009.
And what was the reason the first deal fell through?
When the first deal fell through, now it's like it feels like another birth. But when it fell through, I think, when so there was like too much happening. There were like two partners, there were like two funds coming together, and we were not a private limited then. So to infuse funds, you have to. So there was like this whole, from partnership, we had to move to a private limited. There's loads of things, and again, getting licenses. It got very stretched, and I think everybody got exhausted in the process, and it just fell through, right? So, but as founders, it took a year and a half of our time, energy, all of that, right? So, and then we had to start the journey again, because now we were fully ready to, get in funds, right? And thankfully we did. This fell through, and within a few months we had some, angels backing us, and then there was a VC coming in, right? But that whole journey where you are almost thinking that it's happening and then it doesn't happen, right? It's very, very, very exhausting, right? So
But you
and you
talk
have
to
to
those guys.
continue that the numbers grow. The numbers have to grow, because then you can see that the VC who's coming in, they are also observing, okay, oh, hope the numbers are growing. So, and that time we were a very small team. We were hardly a team, right? It was Arush and myself, and there were a few others, right? It was a very small team, very small office, right? And so that's one thing I feel that, yeah, we could have had funds a little earlier for various reasons we were not able to have.
And did you ever contacted those VC? They must have missed not investing.
Yeah, we are in touch with them. We meet them. So what to do? We meet them. They say, the brand's doing very well.
Mhm.
These are the ways of life because this is how it is, right? I mean, of course, initially we were very upset. And now it's been so many years, right? We were very upset. But then, there is no time to sit and cry over it. You have to move on. There's a team, there are people on your payroll. And then you have this vision in mind, right? So there is no way that you have to like sit down and cry over it. We probably did it for 2-3 days and we were like, okay, forget it. And then we started contacting our remaining network that we had, that look, this is what has happened. And then we had, who I truly call angels, and then they suddenly said, they said, okay, no, we'll come in. These few angels who were actually coming with those VCs even then. So there were these two VCs and there were these bunch of angels, and they were all coming in together. But the two VCs, like they backed out. So the angels were nice enough, and they proved to be the real angels, and they said, we will still go ahead. Right. And and then we closed our round in 2000. The angels came in, and then we closed our round with the VC, which is Roots Ventures. They came in together, and so that's when we raised our first external capital. And then in 2021, Marico came in.
So any future plan, or abhi plan is to just relax? काफी
Yeah,
काम
to be
3
very
साल.
honest, I would like to relax. But yes, an entrepreneur is always an entrepreneur. You're always thinking what next. So definitely would want to do something later.
Another D2C brand later. Another D2C brand.
I can't hear you.
Another D2C brand in making in future.
I
No.
don't know right now, really don't know. But definitely, we would like to take this time off, even as partners, Arush and myself, because last 10 years we've mostly spent time together in office, right? So now we are both spending time at home, and it's just, I said, oh God, last 10 years we've not spent so much time together at home. This is another feeling as well, right? So right now it's just a little bit of family time. I haven't spent much time with my parents. He hasn't spent time. With his mom, it's been mostly at work. Yeah. So just unwinding and relaxing at this point.
Thank you so much, Megha, for your time and answering everything so candidly. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Ashish.
Quite a journey, and quite inspirational also. Anything you would like to share, Megha? Any comments from your side? Anything you want to just I may have missed covering, or anything comes to your mind?
Sure. So, you can say that this is, there'll be a lot of entrepreneurs who will be listening to this, right? I would just say that for an entrepreneur, in my this 10-year-long journey, and I discovered this, you discover your strengths, weaknesses, or what is required in an entrepreneur, or what worked for you then. So, in my 10 years, I felt that, of course, passion and hard work are very, very important things, right? Because as an entrepreneur, you do need that, right? Because without passion and hard work, you can't move. But what is also required for an entrepreneur is courage and persistence, because without courage, that you will be thrown in situations where you are going through a down, and to get you out of that, courage is very important, to smoothly sail through. So for instance, we all experienced unprecedented times like COVID. No one knew that something like this is going to happen, right? And how long. It was just like a dark tunnel for a lot of people, personally and professionally. And that's when you know that, okay, hard work, if there is work, I'm going to work hard, and passion is there. But what really makes you sail through is courage in very tough times, right? When you don't know what's in store, when there are so many uncertainties, right? I would say, when I was talking about that our deal fell through, I think passion and hard work was there, but what really made us sail through was courage, right? And you discover these aspects of yourself while you're in the situation, or when you're out of the situation. So I would say, as an entrepreneur, because it's sometimes it can get a lonely journey. If you are a single founder, right? I think courage is something very, very important. And then persistence. Sometimes you feel that, oh God, I'm doing the same thing every day and the results are so less. But doing that same thing every day will make you perfect. So these are the two things in my 10 years I've felt that, of course, passion and hard work के बगैर तो आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते. But courage or persistence, they are very underplayed, and those are very important in very tough times.
I think very well said. So courage and persistence is the takeaway for today. Thank you so much again, Megha, for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.